CRC Community Podcast for Monday, 12/23, 2019. We usually start at 8 o'clock, but we're a little late this evening. And one of the reasons is because folks who are on my regular Facebook page are aware that my father's in the hospital. We had a very bad fall last Monday. And at the time I was in Atlantic City, and my family jumped in and took him to the hospital and has been looking out for him. But he's definitely not improving. And so a few days ago I took him back to the hospital, and he's been there ever since. And he's not doing as well as we hoped. We see him after work today, and he's on oxygen, which is not a good move, but he needs help with his breathing. So we're hoping that he's going to improve, and then we're going to take him to a rehab center, and from there he will build himself up and get back to where he is, because my father's 93 years old, and he drives his own car, he lives by himself, he dresses like a true G, and he's just been who he is for as long as I've known him. And we want him to continue to live a good, long life. And I would like to thank all the folks who have been responding to the updates that I've given about my dad, and have sent so much love and good wishes so that he can recover. So thank you so much for it. So this evening we're going to do two things. Of course, we're going to start out with a few current events and some community building things. And then we're going to interview Emanuel Brown, who I've known for some time. He's a former federal prisoner, and his position is that the 25 years that he spent in federal prison was unwarranted, unjust, and illegal, and that he was basically mistreated and dogged by the FBI, and he's going to explain that. He's going to explain the circumstances of his assertions and talk about the FBI, what they do, their role in the mass incarceration of the criminal justice world. Also talk about some of his experience in federal prison and what he's been doing since his home. Most importantly, his fight to overturn his sentence to clear his name, to move forward with life. We are going to get into that in depth. Right now, as always, I'm inviting a few guests, and I'd like to just ask Monica, I'm doing that to say a few words in the
Hello, Facebook followers. My name is Emanuel. Hello, Facebook followers. My name is Emanuel Brown. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mr. Jondhi Harrell for the opportunity to be here to speak about egregious federal misconduct committed by the alleges over close to 30 years ago. This is a story that should have been told a long time ago. I'm 71 years old right now, and I want to get this story out before I leave this world. Because I think it's something.
You didn't get ready to go. What's up?
Well, listen, you never know, brother. None of us is guaranteed the next day.
People talking about that big, but the guy got to leave a little sooner than you thought.
Yes. The only person I fear is God. And that's on the real side. But guess what? We all live to die. And one day I'm going to leave this. So I like to leave, certain information to the people in reference to the federal system, how it works, and some of the do's and don'ts that you should know about.
And a lot of folks don't know this. One thing I say is that a lot of young boys on the corner who are stacking paper and making money and doing dirt have no idea what's in their future when they get on the feds. Because the feds will literally say and do anything to get a conviction.
Exactly. And unfortunately, because you have federal judges who are lifetime appointees, a lot of times they get away with a lot of misconduct because it doesn't get exposed in a lot of ways in the country because you understand most lawyers are intimidated by the feds. And I mean, rightfully so. I mean, you're talking about one of the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the country. And
You talk about the biggest gang.
well, yeah, that's
We talk about gangs, and we talk about gang activity. Feds is the biggest gang in the country.
Exactly. And also, I want to make a certain point that one of the reasons why they get away with a lot of these misconduct is because most federal judges are former federal prosecutors. And they have a tendency to lean towards the government anytime there's a conviction or prosecution. You know, prosecution. Yeah, of course. And I basically got caught up in that, because, it was like, let's get this guy by any means necessary. It wasn't even about guilt or innocence. It was all guilt. They made the determination that I was guilty before I was even brought to a court of law. They made that determination without even. I mean, you have to understand something.
Isn't that how it's usually? I mean,
Yes.
do the police or the FBI even indict you unless they believe you're guilty?
Well, see, here's the whole thing, though. You have to go through a system that's governed by what they consider the federal rules of criminal procedure and also the federal rules of civil procedure. But here's the thing, every case, every federal case, even state cases and local cases are governed by what we all know and heard of as probable cause. Now, before you can even think about arresting an individual for a crime, you either see the crime committed personally, the officer has to see the crime committed personally, or they have to develop witnesses to testify or to document that this particular individual or individuals committed a specific crime. And that's what probable cause comes in, because what it boils down to is that probable cause begins and ends all prosecutions in this country, in the United States anyway. And when you don't have probable cause, you're not supposed to proceed any further. To fabricate information and evidence that there's probable cause that doesn't exist, that conduct is so egregious that, it's happened in many cases, it's happened in state cases, but the state cases, they get exposed more because the feds is always jumping on top of the state officials when they're just as guilty of misconduct as the state officials. But
so in reality, who regulates the feds?
Exactly.
Do they regulate themselves?
Basically. Because let me explain something to you. There's an Office of Professional Responsibility located in Washington, D.C. This organization is supposed to review and exercise authority over criminal investigations involving misconduct by federal officials. But, the bottom line is,
Do they do that?
No, listen, I wrote to the Federal Professional Office of Responsibility, I wrote to the Inspector General. Listen, I even wrote to presidents. Ironically enough, I wrote to former Attorney General Janet
Obama was in office?
No, I wrote to Eric Holder when Obama was in office, but I'm talking about we're talking about going all the way back to 1991. I wrote to Janet Reno when she was the Attorney General, another guy named Bill McCasey, I think.
She's still alive?
I'm not sure.
Still alive?
I'm not sure. I
I remember her though. I remember when she was Attorney General.
Yeah, she was supposed to have been, one of those type of attorney generals that's supposed to be about the law, but
So much for that.
hey, yeah, about that. And all my complaints went on a deaf ear. You know what I mean? And it's not too surprising because these are things that happens when you basically in the wilderness fighting for yourself and you don't have no help.
So, tell our listeners, what was
the circumstances involved in the case,
Yes.
involved in the prosecution?
Yes.
Okay, let me say this. Number one, on September 13th, 1990, there was two individuals who committed a bank robbery, what they're called basically unknown suspects, unsubs, the feds consider them unsubs. But anyway, they said it was two guys that robbed a bank in Greensboro, North Carolina on September 13th, 1990. And about 2 weeks later, they came to Philadelphia, but they didn't have to come to Philadelphia because the agents already, they cooperate with each agency from Philadelphia to North Carolina. And what happened was, about an hour after the robbery was committed, there was a guy driving a U-Haul vehicle, and he was arrested by the local police, and he was arrested for driving without a driver's license. And of course, at that point, the guy should have been released from custody, given a citation for driving a vehicle without a driver's license, but they decided to keep him in state custody. And I
They
think
suspect he was involved in the robbery, in the bank robbery?
Well, yeah, but there was nothing to suspect him because there was no information that a U-Haul truck was involved in the robbery. That was something that was done in an affidavit that wasn't submitted until 3 weeks after the crime was committed. A point in fact, before I forget to mention this because it's very important, they arrested me 2 weeks after this crime was committed on September 28th, 1990. Well, okay.
They arrested you here in Philadelphia?
They arrested me here in Philadelphia.
But the bank robbery happened in
Greensboro,
North
Carolina, correct. Okay. And, I found out later, after reviewing the records and documents from the court, that when the FBI locked me up, claiming that they had a warrant for my arrest, originating out of Greensboro, North Carolina, that warrant never existed. If you look at the docket entries, I have copies
under false pretenses.
Exactly. If you look at the docket entries, you'll see that there's no arrest warrant ever issued by a U.S. magistrate for me at that particular time. As a matter of fact, there never was an arrest warrant issued for me. Now, the criminal complaint, before you get an arrest warrant, you have a criminal complaint. Criminal complaint is filed with the court, and it goes to a magistrate who looks at the criminal complaint and determines if there's sufficient probable cause to make the arrest. Then they issue a warrant. Well, in this particular case, if we look at the docket entries, remember I said I was arrested September 28, 1990. Well, guess what? The criminal complaint that was bogus from the beginning was filed October 15th, 3 weeks later. Now, how am I in custody legally from September 28th, 1990 to October the 15th, when there's no documentation showing that there's no legal authority for nobody to even touch me?
Hold on 1 second. One of my listeners says that they can't hear us well on the Jondhi Harrell page. Go on your phone and check that and see how our volume sounds on the Jondhi Harrell page. That's our production director, Drew. Yes, he's checking out what's going on. So go ahead. And,
okay.
And if any folks cannot hear us clearly, please, note that in the comment section so we can, ensure that everyone can be heard.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So in any event, like I said, here's the bottom line. I'm in custody September 28, 1990, but a criminal complaint is not filed with the courts in North Carolina until October the 15th, which is almost 3 weeks later. So, and then of course, I discovered later on the warrant never existed from the beginning. Magistrate never issued a warrant.
So how were they able to hold you and take you to trial with no warrant?
Here's the bottom line. You have to look at it like this here. You got different agencies involved in this here.
TCRC volume is fine. It's just the Ross Jondhi Harrell volume. Can you hear fine? Not at all? Hold on for a second. But you adjusted all the controls on this. That's very weird. Go ahead.
Okay, so my point being is that, there was no legal process to even arrest me on September 28, 1990 for a crime that they didn't know who committed the crime. Another point that I want to make is that the two guys who pled guilty in this case and ultimately ended up testifying falsely against me at trial, had they not pled guilty, they could have never got convicted because there was no evidence that these guys was involved. There was no identification by no bank employees. There was nothing, with the exception of the FBI lying to them, saying that they had fingerprints on a U-Haul truck that was allegedly used in the robbery. And of course,
But they pled guilty?
Yeah, they pled guilty. Two of them
They pled guilty because they were
influenced to believe that the FBI had information or evidence that never existed.
Which they never had.
Exactly.
And what kind of time did these guys do?
Well, one guy did 5 years, and the other guy did 10 years.
And did these guys implicate you in the crime?
Of course. That was part of their substantial assistance. As a matter of fact, before I forget this point, there's one guy who is here in Philadelphia. I don't know what other guy's at right now, but one of the guys here in Philadelphia, he gave a statement to a lawyer that I dealt with on a civil case, and he recanted his testimony and explained to the lawyer why he lied against me at my trial, and he was very upset about it. He said, you know, if he hadn't been tricked into pleading guilty, because he said he never committed the crime, he said he should never plead guilty. I mean, that's a whole nother story.
But he pled guilty because, I mean...
He pled guilty because he was involved in some drug cases. He was involved in some drug transactions, and he was afraid of getting a whole lot of time based on the drug cases that he was involved in and drug information that they had on him. That's my understanding of why he pled guilty. Now, could have been some other stuff involved. I'm not 100% certain.
And just let me say this for the education of those who are listening who have never been involved with federal sentences or state sentences, but especially in the feds. What they will do is pile so many charges on you and bring such a future against you that even if you're not guilty of it, you will plead guilty to get the lesser sentence. If you're looking at several hundred years or 70 or 80 years on some things you know you didn't do, but they said you did, you will plead guilty to 5 or 7 years, you know, to avoid that 70 or 80 years.
That more severe sentence dealing with another case that might be, like I said, from what I understand, it was a drug-related case, and they was threatening to receive up to a life sentence, up to a life sentence if they didn't plead guilty and testify against me. And like I said, this guy didn't know me from a can of lucite paint, you know. And
where was he from?
He's from North Philly.
North Philly.
He's from North Philly.
So the feds basically brought him in to testify against you.
No, this is what happened. He got locked up in a U-Haul vehicle.
Yes.
And they charged him with driving without a license. But when he's in the county jail,
so this was the guy,
right? The guy who they arrested initially.
Right, in Greensboro.
Right? See, I came into the picture because the U-Haul truck was written in my name and address, but I never rented the U-Haul truck.
So how did he get?
The U-Haul truck was written by one of the guys who pled guilty to the bank robbery.
So why did he use your name and address?
Because my best friend, Charles Richardson, who lived over here in Nicetown, he got a driver's license and he used it. He couldn't use it because his age, you know, the age difference was separate. You know, he was a young kid and I was a grown man, of course, at that time. So he used somebody else who was older, close to my age, and what they did was they just placed a picture on top of the license and went and got the truck. Because he was trying to get 4 people, and I have documentation of this here, he was trying to get 4 people to rent a U-Haul truck because he said he was trying to get somebody to move from North Carolina back to Philadelphia, which of course we know that wasn't the real deal that I know of. According to the guy.
What was his reason for really renting the truck?
To my knowledge, the reason was not for no bank robbery, was to help somebody come back to Philadelphia in the truck. A girlfriend or somebody to that extent.
So why did the police?
That's how I became a suspect.
Think he was involved in the bank robbery?
Listen, this is what happened. After they robbed the bank, they got into a stolen getaway car, which was a white Camaro. Okay. Now, the white Camaro disappeared from the bank. That was supposed to have been the end of the case, legally. Okay. But what happened was, when this guy got arrested, he without having a driver's license, about 3 miles from the bank, in a mall. He was in a shopping mall. And I personally believe that what happened was somebody in the mall called for suspicious activity in that mall area, because I understood later on that a lot of people use that mall for drug transactions. They do it in a lot of malls around the country, but anyway, they had no reason to stop him in that U-Haul truck because there was no identification of the U-Haul truck being involved with the robbery. So, like I said, I go back to the probable cause issue. There never was probable cause to make an arrest for him or me, for that matter.
Okay, so they arrest you.
Right, they arrest me
and
2 weeks later.
They charge you with bank robbery?
They charged me with bank robbery, period. Wasn't no, conspiracy.
Conspiracy, nothing?
No, it was just
no weapons, no conspiracy, just bank robbery.
Bank robbery, and of course, armed bank robbery, 924C.
So if you're not in North Carolina when it's happened, if you're in Philadelphia.
I'm in Philadelphia, and I got documented proof medically. I got medical records to show I was in Philadelphia at the time the crime was committed.
I can see if they gave you a conspiracy case saying you were involved, but how can they charge you with bank robbery and you weren't there without adding conspiracy.
But see, the reason why they do that, Mr. Harrell, is simply because conspiracy carries 5 years max. Aiding and abetting, you get just as much time as the person that actually committed the crime.
So they charge you with aiding and abetting.
Right. See, because at this particular point, in other words, when they went to the grand jury, because the foreman of the grand jury asked the prosecutor, he said, well, the way this thing is written, do you feel like Brown and Walker went into the bank? And the agent said, no, we feel like Brown planned it. And Walker was an outside person also.
Oh, I see. So they're getting you as the mastermind.
Pretty much, but that goes with conspiracy though. That's going with aiding and abetting, because even though, like I said, I had documented proof that I was in Philadelphia when the crime was committed. Even if you put me in North Carolina when the crime was committed, they said when they testified that when they robbed the bank, I was nowhere around. So I should have never been convicted of aiding and abetting. Period. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But here's the thing. I think what it boiled down to is the jury didn't know the significant legal difference between conspiracy and aiding and abetting. They just probably felt, well, we think he had some involvement, to some degree or whatever. So, and that's why they found me guilty. And then, of course, the judge, his charge to the jury did not specifically state, well, in order to aid and abet, you have to assist, et cetera, provide some type of assistance. He never charged the aid and abetting statute like that, So he pretty much left it up in the air instead of giving him the because he couldn't do anything about conspiracy because he never charged in that. So that's why I say factually and legally I should have never been convicted. But factually it's because I wasn't there to commit the crime anyway. And there's no, I can't help him rob a bank if I'm in Philadelphia at the time.
Well, that seems to be a lot.
But see, here's the whole thing though, Mr. Harrell. I don't want to get sidetracked on trying to prove guilt, innocence, and all that stuff. My whole objective is just it. This case should have never went to trial, period, because of the serious misconduct committed by FBI agents in the investigation of this crime.
But if you're, all right, so you allege actual innocence, that you were not involved in the crime.
Right.
All right. So you have to really look at the circumstances of the crime.
Of course.
And say, I was not a part of this in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. And of course, personally, I understand that a lot of people are willing to help you or assist you in any kind of way that they can if they believe that you were innocent of the crime, and which I was innocent of the crime. But like I said, my objective at this particular point is that, I want to expose the misconduct that was committed by overzealous rogue agents involved in the investigation of this here.
Okay, and are these agents still currently?
Oh no, all of them are retired. All of them sitting home collecting their pension. This was nice and easy.
So, talk for a few minutes about what you experienced. So you were sentenced in Philadelphia or in Greensboro?
I was sentenced in Greensboro. That's where the case took place. You can't get sentenced in a state that the conviction don't take place.
So they came and got you from Philly and transported you to Greensboro
for prosecution. Right.
And you were there how long?
I was in the court system for like a year almost. Okay. Oh, but let me also explain this here. I almost forgot to mention this to you. I was compelled to represent myself.
Why?
Because the lawyer that they gave me to represent me, he kept coming to the county jail and he kept trying to make me plead guilty. He said, look, I think you're guilty. I think the jury gonna find you guilty. I said, what the hell I look like going in the courtroom with you with that attitude? So what happened was at our next, I think it was court appointed.
Yeah,
but anyway, what happened was at the next motions hearing, I went in front of the judge and I explained to the judge. I said, Your Honor, I said I would appreciate it very much if you would appoint separate counsel to represent me in this case. I said because this particular attorney doesn't have my best interests at heart. He's telling me that he thinks I'm guilty. He doesn't have no intentions of even putting up a fight.
Not in defense, yes.
Right, So anyway, the judge.
What was the judge's response?
This is what the judge said, quote unquote. He said, "Well, Mr. Brown, lawyers are obligated to tell you which way they think the evidence is and which way the evidence is against you. I said, well, Your Honor, he's stacking the deck against me. And he said, well, I'm going to give you two choices, Mr. Brown. You either represent yourself or you let Mr. Hunnable, that was his name, Hunnable, let Mr. Hunnable represent you. I said, well, I'm not letting him represent me. So I ended up representing myself. But here's the whole key to that, though. Even though he told me at the end of the trial, he said, well, Mr. Brown, you know, you missed your calling. You should have been a lawyer. I said, Your Honor, I'm not even dealing with that right now. My thing is this here. Me and this guy argued in that courtroom, Jay. We argued in that courtroom many a days, okay, about having him throwing this case out because of the government misconduct. You know, because I kept saying to him, you know, no, because he, you know, at one point I just told myself, well, you're going to let this thing go whichever way it goes as long as you get a conviction out of the deal. And he just looked at me, you know. I mean, look, this guy's a former federal prosecutor, okay?
The judge?
Yeah. I mean, he said he did defense work at one
What's his
time.
name?
Huh?
What's the judge's name?
Oh, Carlton Tilley.
And he's
senior status now. I don't know if he's still hearing cases right now. From what I understand, I think he is.
so. Talk for a minute about your experiences. You know, so you were convicted, and how much time did you receive?
Okay, here's the thing about the sentence. I received a 27-year sentence, which was illegal, unlawful, unethical, immoral. I received it as a career offender. Now, for people that don't know what career offender consists of, because career offenders consist of if you have two prior convictions of crimes of violence or drug offenses, or one of each combined, okay? Now, I never had two convictions that would qualify for career offender sentence.
What'd you have?
I didn't have no conviction that qualified for career offender.
I mean, how many convictions were on your record at
One,
that point?
all the way back to 75, but it didn't qualify for career offender.
No, you had one conviction. And it wasn't a qualifying conviction.
For career
Yet they
offenders.
still gave you.
So this is what
career offender is supposed to be your third offense.
Well,
Two
yeah,
priors, and that's your
right,
third offense.
right, basically, yeah. But what it was that under the Fourth Circuit case law, they said that even if you don't have real convictions, and a lot of courts said no, you got to have real convictions based on the guidelines, and that's what the guidelines say. You got to have real convictions to get that type of sentence. But anyway, under the precedent case law of the Fourth Circuit, they said that even if you don't have real convictions that qualify, if you have prior convictions that can't qualify, they can still use that against you to give you a career, what they call de facto career offender sentence. And there's no such thing as a de facto career offender. You either a career offender or you ain't. You know what I mean? And the courts knew this. They knew I wasn't a career offender. They knew I shouldn't have been sentenced as a career offender. But they did it because when you go to trial and you challenge the feds in a criminal prosecution, and you challenge the feds in a criminal prosecution, they're going to do whatever they can to punish you to discourage other people from going to trial. Bottom line.
So they sentenced you to
27 years, I did 24 and a half, basically 25.
and when did you come home?
2014.
And so when did you resign at?
I started out at Terre Haute, Indiana in 91. That was penitentiary. And I left Terre Haute, Indiana, I think it was around 93, and I went to Schuylkill. It's in Pennsylvania. I stayed in Schuylkill from 93 to, I was at Schuylkill for about 15 years. And left Schuylkill.
You were in Schuylkill for 15 years?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, you might remember I did all told I did 24 straight, with the exception of the halfway house.
I'm just saying, Schuylkill was a piece of shit run. I was just there for the summer. I held over there. I could have never done 15 years of school. I got a nervous.
Well,
This was trifling and hot. Telling on everything.
well, of course. I mean, that's all over the country, though, Jay. I mean, hell, even down in North Carolina, man, they was telling like a motherfucker. But anyway, excuse my language, but
Let me tell you about the USP Atlanta. When you got to USP Atlanta, you know, Dr. Kaur got all of the OGs for all the sets together, and we made an agreement that there was no hot dudes on the counter. There was no hot dudes on the line. And it was the job of every crew to check your paperwork when you came into jail and send your ass up top if you were hot. We were the only federal penitentiary, actually the only federal prison in the entire country where if you were hot, you could not live in the country.
Well, I understand that. I mean,
The feds hated that so much that they instituted a rule you couldn't have your paperwork.
you couldn't get your PSI.
It had to
barred
be,
you from getting the PSI reports. The prosecutors wouldn't send them to you no more.
it had to be
The lawyers couldn't give
the
it.
council.
Yeah.
That's what changed that across the system. USP allowed.
And then I went to
I'm still
Loretto.
running hot boys at that.
Loretto
went to
was
Loretto?
low. And then I went to Petersburg for a religious program. And then left there and went back to Loretto. Came home from Loretto.
So you know how many years?
5 years. I just finished up my supervised duties after 5 years. I finished up in September.
Okay, so right now your situation is you are searching for attorneys or for
I'm searching for.
paralegals to assist you in your fight?
Well, paralegal is not going to really be able to assist in this area. I need an attorney who's willing to go up against the feds and say, okay, you guys participated in a lot of egregious misconduct in this criminal case, and this conviction should have never took place, and this conviction should be overturned, and this man should be compensated for not only for the illegal conviction, but for the illegal 25 years he did in prison, federal prison. And that's my objective at this particular point, because, like I said, I mean, this is a case that, cries for justice all over the world. Whether I'm going to ever get it, I can't predict that, but you can rest assured that until the day I die, I'm going to seek help. I'm going to try to find somebody that's interested in doing the right thing. I mean, I know when I was in prison all them years, Jay, I wrote so many letters to different lawyers all around the country, famous and infamous lawyers. I wrote to a lot of law professors. I wrote to Innocence Projects. Of course, most Innocence Projects, they always say, well, we only take DNA cases. Unless you can prove that you didn't do it based on DNA, we're not talking to you. And that was
There's no
about it.
DNA in bank robberies where you weren't in the scene and you're saying you're innocent and you were never there.
Well, not only that, I mean, there was no fingerprints or anything to prove that I was even at the scene of the crime. So, that was their position. Like I said, I wrote the Innocence Projects in New York, Pennsylvania, Greensboro, North Carolina, and basically, I mean, you have to understand something. When you accuse the feds of misconduct, man, people people take a different perspective on that type of situation. You know what I mean? Because who you're making the accusation against. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't want to go up against the feds in this type of situation, especially in an armed bank robbery case where they feel like, oh man, that was a serious. Excuse me. That was a serious crime. You know what I mean? A lot of people, look, I don't sanction bank robbery. I don't, say, people should go out and rob banks and all that kind of stuff. First of all, people shouldn't commit crimes, period. Yeah, well, that's what you did, and
that was another part of my life.
Yeah, that was your past. Yeah.
But had I not done those banks, and I was accused of it, I was innocent and did it for 25 years, I'd probably be doing the same for you, though. Fighting to clear my name and working to get compensated for every year that you were in federal custody.
Well, there's two legal avenues at this particular stage of the game. One is, which is very difficult, is filing a 2255 successive petition. And you can do that, I qualify for that under the actual innocence claim based on this guy's recantation of his testimony at my trial. Because without his testimony, there would be no cooperation by the other guy, and it would be difficult to get a conviction in this particular case. So I qualify under that, but I'm not sure if that would be the route that a lawyer that would deal with this type of case would want to take. Then you got
what
the
do you think of lawyers?
So
on this broadcast, what you're actually saying is, if there are any lawyers out there, or any organizations or individuals, who have the balls to challenge the federal government
Exactly.
and to look at this case and support you in your fight, you know,
Feel free to contact me at any time.
so give your email.
My email is MANNIX. That's M as in mature, A as in Albert, N as in nature, I as in into, X as in Xerox, 5238 at yahoo.com. That's Mannix 5238 at yahoo.com.
5238.
At yahoo.com.
Why you still got a Yahoo address, bro?
I don't know, man. I had that since I came home. I ain't
No,
no
that's-
reason to take. I mean, I know you got your Gmail and all this other stuff.
I had a Yahoo when I came home too because somebody created that for me when I was in the joint.
What? Somebody created it for me when I was in the halfway house. So what can I tell you?
So now I'm gonna get you a Gmail, bro.
Nah, man, I ain't worried about that, man.
Get you a Gmail and
Yahoo been serving me okay all these years, so I'm cool.
That's the oldest email address in the world. Let me put it on the screen now, so folks can hit you up on it. Hit my brother up on this old ass Yahoo
Yeah.
Yahoo account, but it'll definitely link you to it.
Oh, and before I forget, I want to mention this to the brothers and sisters out there who get caught up in the criminal justice system, rightfully or wrongfully. The bottom line is this: do not ever accept a lawyer's premise of what the evidence is in a particular case without looking at the documents yourself, because there's a lot of things that's in those documents that you need to see before you make a decision as to whether or not you want to plead guilty or proceed to trial or make a better plea deal for yourself. Okay? Just because a lawyer say that this is what's in the government's file does not necessarily mean that, because guess what? Had I not been compelled to represent myself in this trial, the stuff that I'm telling you now, I could never prove without this documentation. What happened was when they forced me to represent myself, they had to give me copies of the documents that they had in their file of all the alleged witnesses. And they told the marshal, said, well, look, he can read this, he can make notes, but he can't have copies of anything, which was a violation of the law. But in any event, a lot of this stuff, like I said, I would never have knowledge of had I not reviewed the stuff, particularly pertaining to the probable cause. I mean, that was real serious. You know, not only did the warrant, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you know, when you really look at it, not only did the warrant not exist, but you didn't even have probable cause to seek a damn warrant. So that, you know, that was two death nails right there. Then you go to the grand jury, one final point. Then you go to the grand jury and you lie to the grand jury almost 30 times. I got grand jury transcripts. I got the whole trial transcript. So I'm not just shooting off at the mouth on things that I can't prove, okay? I'm saying this because I got documented proof of it. Anybody that wants to see it, they're welcome to it. They're welcome to review it.
Well, we would like to definitely say that, our community podcast is for the community. And we'd like to shine a spotlight on different aspects of the criminal justice system. And when you talk about criminal justice reform, you can't just be talking about what you're going to do in the present and the future. We have to look back at the past. And what Brother Emanuel alleges here is the story of a lot of different people. I mean, most of the folks in the podcast know my personal situation, know my past, that I served 25 years in federal custody for bank robbery, but I clearly state I was a bank robber. I mean, that's what I did, so I did that time, and I'm now doing something different, but I've never disclaimed that I was innocent and that I will say I didn't feel I deserved to do 25 years because I ain't killed nobody, I just took some white folks' money, and they hate that worse than you murdering another black man. But when you have situations where folks are alleging actual innocence and saying I was not involved with this, and this was the misconduct of the FBI and the federal prosecutor that led me to lose 25 years of my life, then that needs to be looked at. And it's not just in, Greensboro, North Carolina. This happens across the country. I will attest to the fact that I met so many brothers during my 25 years in the feds who were convicted with little or no evidence. I had a cellie who was from Colombia, and he got convicted over some dealings in Puerto Rico on some drugs that they never brought to court, on the testimony of some folks who were clearly government witnesses, and he was doing a 20-year sentence on some straight bullshit that they never could prove that he did, but they still convicted him. The federal government has a 97% conviction rate of the cases they bring. And there's no way to have a conviction rate that high unless you are willing to say and do and manufacture any type of evidence to convict people.
By any means necessary.
Yes, definitely by any means necessary. But the major way the feds convict people is through the use of snitches and the use of bargaining people's life. In my own case, yes, I was a bank robber. All right. I don't believe I deserved 20 years, but had I not pled guilty to 20 years, they were going to stack those sentences and the guns. I was going to be looking at 75 to 85 years in prison. And you can't recover from that type of sentence. If you get 85 years in prison and you're in your early 30s, you're done. That's a life bit. So I had to plead guilty just to have any chance at a life. Yeah, after prison. And stacking time, turning brother against brother, father against son, lifelong friends against each other, is the stock and trade for the feds. I've always said that if it wasn't for bitches and snitches, the feds could not convict anybody. And I use the word bitch, not in the sense of a female, but in the sense of somebody with no heart.
Can't take their own weight.
Yes, can't carry their own weight. If you're involved in criminal activity and you call yourself a gangster, be a damn gangster. When it comes down to the feds or the state rolling down on you, be a man. Take your time. Don't be used by them to bring a bunch of other people who many times don't even know you and take them away from their families and their lives because you a bitch and they turn you into a snitch. And that's the reality. Even though I'm no longer involved in criminal activity, I'm a community activist and I'm for the community, I'm still against snitching. I'm sorry.
And rightfully so. I mean, like you said, people should take their own weight, take their own responsibility. I mean, man up, bottom line. I mean, woman up, you know what I mean? So that goes for females too, not just the men, but the females too.
And let me clarify what I mean when I say snitching. When you are involved in criminal activity, if Emanuel and I were in a criminal conspiracy to do anything, and one of us gets caught, and you tell on the other, that's snitching. If you're if you're Miss Jessie down the street, and you're sitting on the porch, and you see a shooting, that's not snitching. You are not involved in that. That's just a witness testifying against something she saw.
And she's trying to get justice in a certain situation.
Yes.
That the family deserves a justice. I mean,
yes.
Snitching
is those of us who are gangsters and we're out there doing gangster shit and we get caught and we turn on our friends, our brothers, whomever.
Our alleged co-defendants.
Yes, that's what a snitch is. And I'm against that in any way, shape, or form. If you profited or hope to profit from any illegal activity, you need to be a man or a woman and take whatever comes to you. And that's the bottom line.
Also, I want to make one more point. I almost forgot about this. You know, not only the fact that I did all the years illegally was so devastating emotionally, psychologically, as well as physically too.
Yeah, you got old, boy. You old as shit now.
Yeah, no kidding. At one time
I see him dance. He can still dance a little bit though.
Yeah, you can hang in there a little bit too. But I used to own 2 nightclubs back in the day before I was arrested, and one of them was on 51st and Market called Eminem Club Unique,
Okay.
and it was one of the nicest clubs in the city. It
One
wasn't
of
that
the spots.
big, but
I'm sure there's folks in West Philly who still remember that.
oh, they probably do. And we used to stay up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and of course, a lot of people probably remember Captain O'Neill. He was out of 19th district. He used to raid us all the time because we weren't supposed to stay up at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And but anyway, we ultimately, me and my partner, he's dead now. He died a couple of years ago. But anyway, his name was Bill Merrill. A lot of you probably remember him. But we opened up the High Rollers Club. We named the High Rollers on 59th and Market. And we changed it to Studio West after a minute, but that's why I was referred to it as High Roll Studio West. But anyway, this particular club was the biggest club in Philadelphia at that time, and our competition was Phoenix on 7th and Arch. And we had WDS there broadcasting live every Saturday, and we had lines of people out there. I mean, this club, it was an old warehouse that we turned into a nightclub.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember that, Jay. Did you ever? I think I talked to you about that before. I don't think you ever been there, but you heard about it. You know, but I lost all that. You know, I mean, of course, the JBM helped me a little bit too because they was warned with the 58th Street Posse. You know, of course, the JBM was taking over all the drug territories back then, and they killed the guy outside the club named, I think his name was Naeem, and another guy. And after that, when anybody gets killed inside your business or outside your business, your club goes down. Now, this was in '92, of course. I fell in '90, so I wasn't even around when it happened.
I was in Terre Haute then.
Yeah, I was in Terre Haute. I told you I went to Terre Haute in '91. I got out of there in '93, so we probably was there, just didn't know each other. We was there during the same time period. But anyway,
No. I was in Lewisburg then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I left Terre Haute in '88.
Matter of fact, you was in Lewisburg with the guy that testified against me.
Really?
Yeah. But anyway, in case some of you people remember, I'm sure a lot of you do. That was a nice club, and I miss having that business, but it is what it is. I mean, you lose a lot when you
So
get.
what you're saying is, they not only, wrongfully convicted you, they took you away from a lucrative business.
Exactly.
That had you been able to stay in that business, I mean, you might have been
No telling.
a millionaire today. Who knows?
Yeah. Yep. So I mean,
You have to put all that in a brief, man. That's damages.
Yeah. Well, right now my thing is to get this conviction overturned. Get it thrown out because it should have never been a conviction. Like I said before, I reiterate. The bottom line is, for whatever reasons there may be, they just wanted me off the street, and they did it, like I said, by any means necessary. They fabricated everything, not just from the criminal complaint to the alleged warrant to the grand jury indictment, even to the illegal sentence. I mean, I was getting screwed so many different ways. I was like, man, when y'all gonna use some grease? You know what I mean?
I feel you. So, I would definitely say that, if there are any lawyers out there who after hearing this, wishes to contact Mannix, and I once again say he can be contacted at mannix5238@yahoo.com, and he would appreciate, linking with some folks who recognize the validity of what he's saying. We definitely thank you for coming on the podcast and speaking on your situation. We thank you for sharing, and we hope that this brings you some positive results.
Yes, I'll pray on it.
I would also like to say that a lot of folks know that we broadcast here from 3609 North Broad Street, which is a half block up from Broad and Erie, and the back of our building fronts on Germantown Avenue. On my way here for the 8 o'clock podcast, the Germantown Avenue is blocked off from Venango down to the next street light. And as I was driving past, and I was at the red light, and I asked the police woman why it's blocked off, she said there was another shooting. And that seems to be the nightly ritual in some block in Philadelphia. There's a shooting. And we talk about stop the violence, and we talk about, prayer vigils and rallies and celebrity basketball games and how we can stop the violence. And I keep on saying, and very few folks are listening, the way to stop violence in black, poor areas of Philadelphia is economic. Anytime you have a poverty, despair, frustration, you're going to have a high level of violence. And unless city council and the mayor's office and the corporations and the businesses that run Philadelphia are willing to look at real change in our community, entrepreneurship, investment in North Philly and in West Philly and Southwest, uptown, to Frankfurt, there are so many areas of the city that is beset with high rates of unemployment, serious poverty, and desperate people. As long as there's a desperation, you're going to have violence. So, I'm sick to death of stop the violence rallies, marches. The only time I will go to one is if I'm contacted by a family whose son or daughter has been murdered, and they personally ask me to come. Other than that, I'm just tired of the show of how can we stop violence when the politicians know how to stop violence. When the police department knows how to stop violence. When the CEOs of these major corporations with offices on the 40th floor downtown looking over the city knows that billions of dollars are being generated in this city, and very, very little of it is flowing to impoverished communities. Stop talking about stop the violence until you're willing to invest in black communities. And that's the bottom line.
Well, we also, on note with that, Jay, we also have to try to bring together, and it's been very difficult over the years, and I know how impossible it sounds sometimes, but we definitely need to try to bring our celebrities, our entertainers, our sports figures, people who have the money that they can invest in the communities, because you have to understand, a lot of those corporations you talk about, and a lot of the people who got money, the government can come in and give certain grants for certain programs. The bottom line is, if we teach these young people trades, electrical, masonry, carpentry, if we teach them trades, something that they can be proud of, and they can go out and get jobs. Okay, a lot of them don't have the skills to go out and get these jobs.
And we got to bring jobs back to the city.
Well, yeah.
Even if they have skills, how many jobs are there in the city that they can apply for and attain?
Right, but that goes with the mayors, that goes with the council.
City council.
Right, that goes with all those politicians who can, give certain tax breaks to bring, certain corporations, back to Philadelphia. There's a lot of things that can be
tax-free Philly.
Exactly, but here's the thing.
Give me the benefit for your taxes for X amount of years if you're a corporation who will come and bring your business to Philadelphia.
Exactly, but here's the thing. My point is just here. We cannot keep sitting around waiting for other organizations or other people to assist us in what we need to do in order to create an atmosphere where the young kids are not out there looking to do wrong or have peer pressure of that nature, okay? We have to be able to help ourselves. In order to help ourselves, we got to get our people who have financial resources.
Should we invested in the city.
Exactly.
But they don't do that.
I know that. That's what I'm
Listen
saying.
to this.
That don't mean that we can't try to talk to them personally and say, listen, man, you know what I mean? What is your interest? What are your goals? I mean, you know, we know your goal was to make money. Your goal was to be successful.
Be famous and to be in the news.
Exactly.
We got an article here that Meek Mill just invited, a group of Philadelphia kids to New York City for shopping.
Yeah, I know. I seen that.
All right, now, let me say this about it. All right? That's a nice feel-good.
That's a good gesture, but
I'm saying, what does it really mean?
exactly.
If you take a bunch of kids to New York City and you buy them some designer clothes or some nice Yeezys for one day, what the hell does that mean in the greater scheme of things?
Exactly. I agree.
The next day, and the next day, and the next week, that kid is still living in Philly and is still dealing with whatever.
Leave me alone, man.
The reality is, if you can get celebrities, corporations, billionaires, industry to come to Philly and to create so young people have a future in Philadelphia, that's more important. I don't want to hear about me building basketball courts and taking kids shopping. F all that. Do something real. Do something that really impacts the community, that brings dollars into the community, and that makes a difference.
And make investments.
Buying a kid a new hoodie don't make no difference. I'm so tired of the bullshit.
Make investments that create jobs.
Yes. And support organizations that are doing the work on the ground, that are trying to help folks find jobs, find housing, get educated, raise their children. Invest in your own community. The same communities that buy your music and go to your conference.
And support you when you have a problem.
Yes, most definitely. And wears Eagles jerseys again, and wears Sixers jerseys. Athletes, entertainers, business people need to give back to the community. And I'm not saying give all your money away. I'm saying invest in some real shit that you can make money in, but also helps
The community.
the community make money. It's a win-win. Well, we'll be with you. I'd like to thank my guests who tuned in, and for folks who tried to watch this podcast and the sound wasn't up to par, always realize that you can switch over to TCRC Philly. We recorded this on a separate device, and also once we finish recording, we take the TCRC Philly broadcast and we turn it to a YouTube video. So we'd like to ask you to become subscribers to the Jondhi Harrell YouTube channel and watch our podcast. And also, every morning you can go to channel9.com, and our shows broadcast on channel9.com out of Fort Worth, Dallas. And Donnie Ballard loves the work we're doing here in Philadelphia, and we make sure that our voices are blast across the country every morning at 9. As always, I would like to say peace, power, and respect. Have a wonderful holiday, and while you are celebrating Christmas, celebrating Kwanzaa, take some time and go to the TCRC website and get out there. Support the work that we're doing. Understand the work that we're doing. Look us up. See what we're doing in the community. We're not just talking about doing the work, we're doing the work. And that's the difference between what we do and a lot of organizations do. So send us a Christmas and a New Year's gift. It's tax deductible. Be a part of change in the city of Philadelphia. Peace.
Peace out.